Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Alan Wake DLC The Writer Nightmare video walkthrough. It will be played on the PC, we'll be using the handgun only, no batteries, no HUD. And once again guys, this walkthrough damage run, challenge run, will have a star, an asterisk next to it because the end of the game could not be done. And I don't know if this is just Alan Wake being consistent, because if you remember in the walkthrough, in order to kill the Dark Presence, you had to use the flare gun. So it seems like that might be part of just the way that they're doing things now, you know? Do you think that that's just a consistency on their end, guys, or is it just bad design? I'm kind of torn, personally, kind of frustrated, but this is a challenge run for every single section up to the final section, and then it will be a fun run on that final sequence. And I'll explain what we do there, because it's slightly different to the Signal. It's a little bit better in design, but it's still a little bit ridiculous when I show you what's going to happen. Anyhow, this is the hardest fight in the DLC. This right here is 3 waves. 3 waves of Taken, and if you manage to do this without getting hit by an axe, you're a miracle worker, because let me tell you, I got axed here maybe about 10 to 15 times, and on the 3rd wave as well, which is really frustrating. But the idea is, you want to be really aggressive if you can. Take out the first wave, then when the wave's on the roof, try and take out the flankers as they come down the roof, and then if you can, you want to try and set off as many of those fireworks as possible, as the 3rd wave is going to spawn in the field to your left, and if you take their shrouds, when they push you in the place I'm going to show you, which is pretty decent for cover, you'll be able to kill them without needing to use the torch, and that's very important. But the thing here is, when you go up onto the... It's kind of I don't know what you would call it, it's like an awning, or some kind of trim around the house. When you go up onto this decking area, this cladding, sometimes they don't throw the axes that much because of the speakers blocking the line of sight and stuff. Other times they do. I thought that they couldn't hit you when you stood up in this corner on the right of me where I'm going to go to a moment. And then on one of the attempts I got hit, so that kind of went out the window. But the fireworks here and all the ambient lights are going to help you, because sometimes they'll kill things, sometimes they won't. But you want to make sure you're always moving. Always be strafing, just in case somebody's about to shriek an axe your way. And try to put as much geometry between you and them as you can so that you don't get accidentally hit, and just be real careful of this assault coming here. He's the biggest threat, because if he charges like this, if you're not in a good position, you'll be in trouble. And then if right now, I could get axed at any moment. If they want to, they'll hit you. It's up to them, it's not really up to you. And you see the axes? Like, it's crazy, dude. It's really luck-based, and I don't like that personally. But it does make it hard. But if you can do this under these challenge restrictions, you can do the whole run except for the final fight. And the final fight is only difficult because they don't give you the resources that you need. It's just like I said in the previous DLC walkthrough, and it's just like what I mentioned in Alan Wake. Alan Wake's campaign, before you came to an important encounter, they fluffed you so hard, they made the encounters a lot easier. The DLCs go against this design philosophy so hard to try and make the game harder, but it ends up hurting the challenge run. And if they gave you some flashbangs, if they gave you some flares, then it would have been okay. But they didn't. So good luck getting rid of gold shrouds with just a torch. It's the Emil situation all over again, you know? And then we have this sequence. This sequence is amazing. I'm telling you, boys and girls, the DLC set pieces are so creative and so different. They've got all kinds of environmental hazards and interactables that just elevate the combat in such a good way. And especially when you consider that a lot of people thought the combat was pretty basic and it got repetitive. Adding these little bits of flair, to me, I just think it raises all the standards and just makes it fresh again for me. I really, really enjoy it. And I don't remember this too much either. This is the first time I've played these DLCs, folks, since I made that walkthrough on YouTube. I actually have a walkthrough for this from 10 years ago. So if you want to see how the channel's changed, see how the guides have progressed and the stylings, then do that. Because that is as classic as a walkthrough can be done. There's hardly any cuts. There's hardly, you know, any sections removed except for the cutscenes and the cinematics. It's a very traditional walkthrough. There's no restriction runs. I take a ton of damage. You know, it's rather vintage right now compared to what we're doing here. You can hear the axe just then. Look how good they are with that. But we're going to use the barrels on the double assaults. And it just writes itself, doesn't it? Even though we did make a bit of a mistake there. It's all good. I do think the Writer is the easier of the two, but I do think it's easier to die in the Writer because there's a lot of platforming, and the physics engine, Alan's jump, and just the general spottiness of platforming in this game, it makes it really tough to not accidentally die. To give you an example too of the difference between this run and the run I did for YouTube, the no punctuation run on YouTube was a run done where I do not die. So I did the whole thing and I didn't die once. Whereas on this is a challenge run on the hardest difficulty with several restrictions, and I died a bunch. I died so much, but it was never on the fights, guys. I've never died on a fight on these walkthroughs. I know that sounds arrogant as fuck and it's not true. It's just because when I get hit I restart checkpoint, you know? So the fights don't kill you, it's everything else. The amount of times I've fallen off, the amount of times I've gone to do a jump and Alan's just gone mad and it didn't work. Like, I died on the platforming in this DLC in particular maybe about 7 or 8 times just from weird jumpy nonsense. So you need to be aware of that. It's easily one of the more challenging aspects. The thing I love about the Writer though, you'll notice I've got the heavy duty lantern, which is the best torch in the game. It's the 4th tier of torch, right? Standard torch, better torch, lantern, better lantern. And in Alan Wake it takes you a while to even get this. You're nearly at the end of the game when you get the best one, and then they take it off you and then you probably get it again. Whereas in this DLC, the first thing they do is give you the best torch. And that to me is perfect. This fight here, probably my favourite fight in the DLC, but the spawns are so busted I couldn't do anything with it. And look at all the potential here. Big open area, lots of enemies, lots of space, lots of explosives. And then they start spawning people in really fucking weird places, and it just gets really annoying. So I take out the first spawn, have a ton of fun doing it, and then when you go near the light, you end up spawning an ambient spawn, and what happened was they spawned on top of me, and then because I was in the light, they ran away, they went invisible. And that's something that we're going to be talking about on another project, the idea of leashing. So you didn't see me mess around with the light and try and fight those people and then go back and forth for about 2 or 3 minutes trying to get an encounter, and it just didn't work. So instead I just progressed on to this sequence. This sequence is kind of cool as well, but it's also really, really annoying because I'm out of ammo, but you can't really tell. And if I kill every enemy that you're looking at here, I'm going to have not enough bullets for the guys that spawn on the backside. So I'm in a bit of a pickle right now. One of the things that sucks about having no HUD is you guys can't see my ammo situation, so you can't see the crisis underneath the HUD. And in the main game, I never had any problems at all. But in this I do. There's more enemies, there's more damage to be dealt, and the pistol restriction is definitely heftier here, because, like, look, I'm out of bullets now. So I'm going to have to flash these guys and stun them and kite them. There's no two words about it. And fortunately, I'm a decent Alan Wake player, and this is in my ability, but if they come too close, I can't probably pop a flare because I don't have many. I don't have any flashbangs. I'm really feeling the squeeze when it comes to resources here. And this could almost be a bit of an inkling towards what Alan Wake 2 might be like when you run out of resources, because survival horror is definitely different to, you know, psychological thriller. I popped the flare there if you're wondering for the safety. I was hoping it would stop them throwing shit at me. But if you look at them, the first thing they try to do is throw things, and breaking this while stunning them and not getting hit by an axe is a pain in the ass. And then I pop another one because I thought I needed to activate it again, but I don't, because I didn't think it had worked correctly. So I waste a flare there, which I shouldn't have wasted. I'm trying to bait these dudes closer so I can stun one and get past both of them. It was a risky gambit, but it paid off, and I've been playing a lot of Alan Wake recently, so my movement and my dukes are pretty good at the moment. That's the kind of thing that decays when you move away from a game, and then you come back later on and you almost forget how to play, and you get beaten up a bunch, but then slowly but swiftly you start getting all of that old knowledge back again, and you start waking up those old abilities, and before you know it, you're just as good as you ever were, if not better. But we transition here from that section of some platforming back onto the tower here. We've got 24 rounds and a few flares, a couple of standard taken jumping over the sides. I really like this section too. I think some of these areas in the DLC are just superb. The part coming up on the bridge here is probably the greatest set piece in Alan Wake. And I don't mean action-wise, because it's more of a puzzle. And it involves breaking the bridge in some really creative ways. And then watch this. Now look how cool that is. But here is the bridge, guys. Between the booms and the crumble, you are so overpowered right now, and there's a wonderful juxtaposition of feeling vulnerable, feeling intimidated, and then feeling empowered. And I feel like that this really nailed it. Like, look at this. Look how cool that was. That's the type of thing you would do in Golden Axe. Try and bait some enemies to fall off the edge and stuff, knock them off the edge. Classic brawler strategies. Look how sweet that was. And then look at the spawn. That right, you're looking at 5 taken right there, 6 taken. 2 of them are assaults. And we're just dropping bridges on them and booming the shit out of them. Look at this. Look how fun this is. 1 assault left, 1 standard ranged taken coming forward. Same damage thresholds as the main game. And that's it, that's the end of the fight. How sweet was that? When people say that the DLCs for Alan Wake are not very good, I just don't get that. I'm so glad you don't see many people saying that, and most people that do are generally terrible at the game. My Discord shared a video of a guy who said that Alan Wake has terrible combat, and if you watch the video of him playing, it's really embarrassing for him. He doesn't think it's embarrassing though, he thinks he's got a solid point, because his narrative is that the game has got terrible combat. Look at that, by the way, that was terrible. Not a big fan of that spawn, but luckily I managed to drop the reflex dodge there and fight back against the flanker, who's, as his name implies, is definitely doing his job. I like this section as well. This first fight here is really claustrophobic and they put a lot of pressure on you, so super fun. But the guy in the video, he doesn't understand that you can stun people with a torch. He's shooting at shrouds and stuff. I don't get that kind of video unless they're being, you know, joking and memeing and being ironic. Calling a game garbage in its combat when you don't understand how to play it is really funny to me. Because I've always liked Alan Wake's combat and I've always defended it. I do think it has shortcomings. I do think it could be elaborated on and improved. I would love to see those improvements and elaborations because I think it deserves it. But to just call it shit because you're doing none of the tools that the game gives you is an interesting one indeed. But right here, guys, you're going to get attacked by an absurd amount of birds, and I'm going to be popping a lot of flares. In this DLC, unlike the last one, they give you a lot of flares. You might be wondering, Chris, what are you doing with the flares, man? You're going to need those. And yes, I am. I would have needed those. I should have been better here, guys. I really should have, looking back. However, they gave me 20 flares, so I kind of got flare happy. And looking back now, maybe if I do these sections, like for instance, if I used flares sparingly here and I skipped all of these fights, I could have probably done this sequence and retained a lot of those flares, and then using those flares I might have been able to do the final section. That is definitely a possibility. But I think it goes against the spirit of the run, that idea. Like in this one in particular, remember in the Signal DLC that you probably watched 5 minutes ago? Remember when I was running through a couple of those fights? I did that because I didn't have the resources to fight them as well as I wanted to, and one of them was because I stumbled upon an exit and I took it, the boiler room fight. I felt bad about not doing all those fights, and it made me want to do all these fights instead. So I stood my ground here in many areas where, look, I've run out of bullets. It's not that I don't want to fight, guys, it's that I can't. So it ended up making me conscious that I was running past a lot of things, and I didn't want to do that again. So I ended up blowing a lot of resources which I could have potentially saved, and then those resources would have made the end much easier. But I don't want the challenge run to compromise in its enjoyment for you guys and its enjoyment for me, just so I can carry some resources to the end. Like, that to me it's a bad reason to succeed. I'd rather fail having a great time and putting out a great product than succeed half-arsing it, cheesing it, and doing something lame. Because that's who I am, you know, that's how I function. And this section right now is another one of those transient spawns that happen. And I don't have too much ammo here, so I'm going to be getting to the light and talking to Billy Zane. But there's some tools, so hopefully we'll get some bullets, unless it fires it off the edge, which it does sometimes.
You must take full control of your own mind.
And then you have the sequence that leads up to the end of the DLC, which is this wonderful segment of clearing rocks on this mountain path. So you might have wondered why Alan Wake didn't have more emphasis on the lighthouse. I know I wondered. It made me think maybe they were trying to, you know, avoid that motif too much and maybe save it for something later on. But I always thought that the game would have started with the lighthouse and ended with the lighthouse. I felt like that beacon of light was intended symbolically to showcase Alan conquering the nightmare. And of course, as we know now, spoiler alert, just in case, Alan didn't conquer the nightmare. Alan was stuck in it, he was trapped in the darkness, he was lost. And Alan managed to get his wife out, but he chose to sacrifice himself to do so. And then you lead on to the DLCs, and the DLCs are you trying to find yourself and get to the surface. So once again, you're in this nightmare, and the lighthouse is the goal. And then when you play the entire, portfolio of Alan Wake from start to DLC, it does end with the lighthouse. You get to it, you get from the nightmare, and then you go to the Diver's Isle and you get resolution there. So it is nice to see that it comes through, and this sequence right now is so cool and so fun. It must be said though, the checkpoints are a little bit spaced, so you can get some really hectic and awesome and cinematic Michael Bay bullshit going on here, and it's really, really fun to watch. And then you'll get hit. And then you'll have to go back a little bit further than you'd like, so then all of your impulse to do this again is gone. As much as it's not a difficult sequence, it's not demanding, it's very powerful, the lighthouse sweeping repeatedly here. And it does your job for you. But let's talk about the final segment and why it's kind of unrealistic. So the final sequence, it pins you in with Barry on a bridge. And in that section, if you throw a flashbang at him, and then you do your full beam, and you pray, he dies, and he might not kill you. But it takes a hell of a lot to break his shroud, because he's a boss, essentially. And then you go forward, and then there's an ammo cache, but there's nothing else, really. There's no stacks of flashbangs, there's no stacks of flares, it's just bullets. So, depending on what your resources are going in there after that bridge encounter, you might be in a bad place. I think I had 1 flare, 2 flares, and maybe 1 flashbang. I didn't explore everywhere and get all the flashbangs, I probably missed a bunch, and I didn't get every flare, and I used my flares badly in some ways. So I could have saved some of those, but fundamentally, you don't really have that much gear if you've done the run like I've done it so far. So the first thing that happens is it summons Emil with a gold shroud. So you fight Emil, he's very simple, you take him down. I think there might even be a flock with him because they double up the enemies to make him a bit more demanding. And then when you kill Emil, it spawns the brothers, the Asgard brothers. And then it spawns birds as well. But there's a checkpoint before this, after you kill Emil, so killing Emil gets you a checkpoint, even though he's the easiest phase in the fight, which doesn't make any sense. Then you take the 2 brothers down and Barry spawns. Barry spawns as a standard taken. You take his gold shroud down, you kill him, there's a flock with him as well. You kill the flock, and then he spawns again, and this time I think he might be an assault, so he's putting pressure on you. So you take him on in that phase with his shroud, and then he dies, and then he spawns as a teleflanker, and then you kill him, and then he comes back again as just like the final one, and then when you kill him, then he goes away for good, and you've won. But the problem is, guys, if you get hit on any of those 4 or 5 Barry phases, you go back to before you beat the brothers. So you have to do both brothers with a flock, you have to do Barry with a flock, Barry with a flock, Barry with a flock, Barry with a flock, and you have to do all of that with no resources. Can it be done? Absolutely. It's not that difficult, but I did not have the tools to break down Barry's golden shield. His golden shroud was just too much. So if you watch here, guys, flashbang, aim at him, there's nowhere to run here, you have to be aggressive, because your back's against the wall. So do you see that? That was about as close as it can be right there. And then here we go, the first phase. So here comes Emil. And what we're going to do, guys, if you're wondering, I did all the way up to Barry's second to last phase. And I ran out of everything then, I couldn't break his shield. So I recorded that sequence of me going all the way through the gauntlet up until the end. And then I put the no shield trainer on. I killed all the phases while saving my flashbang and my flares. I got to the phase where I couldn't do it because I couldn't break his shield. And then I turned off that no shield ability and I fought him with the resources I came in with. That's what I did, guys. Complete, full disclosure. This is not legitimate as a challenge run. It's a fun run now. All the way up to here has been legitimate. This is not. And it's simply because I couldn't break the shield. And there's one casualty of this, guys. As I'm trying to turn off the cheat engine, I get attacked by Barry, and as I'm turning around, I kill a flock instantly. So there's one flock that got done dirty, and I'm sorry about that, flock. You deserved better. But other than that, it's as good as I could make it without going back through the whole thing again. And it's interesting too, because if you think about it, they give you the checkpoint where you don't need it. You know, you can do a meal without using many resources. You can do the brothers without using many resources, because they're just teleflankers. Teleflankers are the easiest enemy to fight, and I can hit this with the normal shield. I don't have to worry. Admittedly, you know, I've got footage there of me dumping a flash grenade on him, because it makes him quicker. But I've done this fight, I've done that sequence without flashing him. I've done him just standard way, you know. And I've done it several times trying to get to Barry and trying to kill Barry. And it's just... if they'd have given you a checkpoint after maybe the first Barry encounter, so you only had to do the last 3 or something like that, I think it would have been easier to save your resources. Like right now, he doesn't have a special aura. This is easy. If every Barry had a standard shroud, this would be okay. It's that gold one that makes it so pointless. Because, like, look how easy that was. I absolutely demolish him. I embarrass him. And you're never going to run out of bullets, which is nice. But if they had another bin that was full of flares, then this section would have been cake. But you kill that one, and then another one comes. Here he is. So here's the next one. And then if you look, this one has a gold aura. And that's it. That's all you needed to do. Give him a gold aura, and now I can barely win. So I use the flashbang. I'm trying to kill the flock. He's getting his aura back this whole time. I shouldn't have done that. Once again, you're probably wondering, Chris, you could have been better with the items. Trust me, guys. The one you're watching here is the first one I did when I won. You're not watching the 50th when I was trying to do it. So, we knock him down with the flashbang. I run out of batteries on my torch. He's really close to being done. I think one of the areas they could have made this better is if you put your torch on the gold shroud, just even if you're not boosting, it doesn't regenerate. If they'd have made it like that, then it would have been possible. Because you could have really, really intelligently used your torch. But instead, you just get totally fucked. And it doesn't seem tenable at all. And this is not even... I think there's 2 more phases after this. So, here comes this one. And that right there, guys, that's where I activated the no shield. See the birds go down instantly? When he attacks me there, I paused the game and I turned it off. And then the first thing I did is pop the shield, and he's now a teleflanker with a gold shroud. This is just too many shrouds, basically. And you don't have the resources to get rid of it. I would be lying if I said that I wasn't angry about this too. I was really frustrated the day I was recording these DLCs, because I was so excited for them, and I was so on a high from Alan Wake, because the guide's doing well on YouTube and people seem to be enjoying it, and then I got to this and I couldn't do it. And it's not even I'm not good enough to do it. It's the game is designed in a way that goes against everything Alan Wake was, which is unfortunate. Except for the end, of course, the Dark Presence. But when they give you a box of flares, it tells you that you're going to be using the flare gun, and that makes sense to me. This didn't. This kind of set me up for a fall, and I took it badly. Thank you for watching. You take care now.